Hey people, what is this? What's your scrubber on the top? That's a question we're gonna answer tonight, along with a few other questions that I've had recently. Mainly, the big one being, how good's the radio reception around here? So I pulled out an old radio I had lying around. I found it on my bed earlier while I was cleaning up a little bit, or organizing I should say. And I plugged it in, made sure it still works, and it does. It's a really, well, I shouldn't say, what is this? See. Date of manufacture? Fuck no. Anymore? No stickers, no nothing. All stickers have been gone. Well. Yeah, well. Can do this anyway. Okay. What the crap, we're getting a signal here. I need to work on the volume control. Okay, I'm gonna bring you down here. This indicates signal strength. And the fact that this is blinking means that there is something on this frequency, but this thing doesn't know what it is. So, we're on the AM range. No, we're on the FM range right now. The more commonly used one, at least here in Sweden. Slowly. I've been able to tune in radio stations from other countries using this method. If you call that bullshit, tell it to the people that were speaking Saudi Arabian. Amplitude change. Something there. You can hear that, can't you? Betcha. There it is. Now we have a song. There's a channel. Can't read any of that. We're in the kilohertz range. That's AM. No, that's FM. Or an FM. We're in the megahertz range. That's, I'd say 90. That's, I should say 88.5 maybe. Switch on. Go moving on. There we go. There it is. It's another news channel. Now I'm going to go through the FM frequency fairly quickly here. There's very few interesting things on the FM channels. If you use one of these really old radios and go close to an airport, you can actually find stuff in the AM range that is you're not supposed to hear. There's a song. I'm not really interested in the FM range. Now, route back to the low end of the scale. Now we're going down to the funny stuff, the AM range. Straight up, the AM range doesn't really care much, it appears. Hear that sound? This can get really loud, so I'm not going to turn it up. Starting to hear something. Pitch change, or rather, slight change there. I know eventually there's like a part that sounds like it's some sort of alien signal. Static. That sounds French. That is not Swedish. Oh, crap, turned it off. That sounds French. That is 650. 650 megahertz or kilohertz somewhere. Here's that area that sounded kind of like an alien frequency. Goes from that. Goes from Rolf copter to whatever the fuck that is. $710 is something I should look into. Some sort of news channel. It's English. That's creepy. The AM frequency is real funky. We're not even halfway through the band. This is only a 1 megahertz range. Not even that. This is like, actually, it's about 1 megahertz. There's a voice in there. I'm not even gonna try to discern the language here, I think. It's English. I think it's the same channel as before. There's a voice in there too. Sounds like English. There's a man and a woman speaking, you can tell that much, but that's about it. Sounds vaguely like English, but because of the alien signal in the way, we can't really determine what it is. clearest signal yet. It's English. But it's not. I better take note of that one. Are you kidding me? Is this an American radio frequency? How far do these fucking things travel? I doubt they'd be relayed via our towers. I mean, they're only in the megahertz range. I'm gonna stay on this for a bit. Could also be from Britain. That's more likely, considering Britain's closer to Sweden. Could also be Ireland. Could be Ireland. Either way. It sounds like it's from Ireland. No stereotypical thing intended, but literally voice is all I have to go on here. Let's go out. Let's move on. Something about terrorist attack or something. More aliens to go. As you can tell, it doesn't make much of a difference whether it's angled or not when you're in the kilohertz frequency moving around. Sounds German. I'm not guaranteed though, don't take my word for that. Considering my knowledge of German, that would basically be, that could be German, Belgian, Latvian, Russian, I don't fucking know. Actually, I know it's not Russian. It doesn't sound like Russian. It sounds like German. Well, we're obviously no longer in Sweden. We're over the megahertz now. You can tell that by the... was interesting. There was someone there. That's funky. Well, I can hear a voice in there. Are you kidding me? A blank band? That goes on for a good 10 kilohertz. There's a frequency in the AM range that's not used. I guess something's gonna fall in there eventually. Oops. Yeah, I don't know if my microphone's just canceling the crap out. Might be. Hmm. Hmm. Let's move on. I don't know about you guys, but last time I checked, that's neither English, Swedish, nor German. Actually, it might be German. And we're at the end of the band. It ends on a high frequency. Jumping back to FM. Actually, it's amazing. But if it still has one of these old radio things, this is an old combined cassette radio player, AM, FM band, can do both. I've actually used these things that can do a third line, third band, and it's really funky because that band is actually a foreign band. It's a I think you're getting up to hundreds of megahertz at that point, and it's basically a really high frequency. It's rarely used by commercial things, and now I should not say that I found anything suspicious on it, but I found a lot of things from out of this country at least. It was a really old player, a really old thing from when they were still like really old. I guess it's the wrong thing, but early 90s, late 80s. It was from late 80s, early 90s, you know, when this sort of stuff started going out of style. Or rather, I guess these things were really starting to hit the big bucks at that point. I mean, the radio had been the shit for years, but this format was kind of unusual. That thing had a built-in CD player, so it was trying to keep with the times, obviously. This one is a slide. Maybe I should unplug it. Yeah, it has slide switches, which is a rare thing these days. I don't know about you, but when was the last time you heard clicking and slide switches? When was the last time you heard that? Something that's kind of unique about the volume control on this thing is that it's a smooth slide, it's an analog thing. When you push it, the louder it gets. If you push it this way, the quieter it gets. Something that's kind of unique about it though is that when it's off, that's super easy. No effort. But when it's on, this thing gets sticky. That's because the contacts weld themselves together every single time you move them. They arc. I'm gonna fix that by using some electronics oil I have. But not tonight. Now this thing was so edgy that it even had batteries. I don't know when the hell this thing was made, so I might be just making fun of the early 2000s here, or maybe just the late 70s. I don't know. But obviously they're C batteries. Everything was always C batteries. Nothing was ever D batteries or anything of that nature. Everything was always C batteries for some reason. Risk of electric shock. Do not open. Warning, shock has do not open. To prevent electric shock, do not remove cover. Why did they have to say that 3 times? Warning, electric shock, do not open. Warning, electric shock, do not open. To prevent electric shock, do not remove cover. What? Why 3 times? Why not 7? You have the A and B recorder thing from the old dual things. You got the A and B. Side A only does playback. Side B does both recording and play. And yes, you can actually record tapes with this thing. You usually could. It wasn't that big of a feature. Sometimes they just had if they were really small and they had the play record, both features, they usually only had one of these things. If they were really small, because as you can see, one of these players is pretty big, and you can cut the thing basically in half by taking out one of those. The speakers generally aren't that big on these things, but sometimes you find these models that have pretty big and decently large speakers. My mother has a good example of that. What are they, about 6 inches? 4 or 6 inches? 4 or 5 inches something. They're pretty damn big. Big for a portable stereo, at least. It's got a CD player and I think it has a single cassette player too. Both play and record, I think. I'm not entirely sure, but no, it does not have a cassette. It's only CD. It also has a built-in radio. It's CD and radio, and it's basically, when these things started going out of style, they basically realized that these were completely useless. CD was the shit. They ditched these things, just added a CD player, and they could basically compress them down and make the speakers bigger, and you generally more skookum. Battery compartments really haven't changed over the years. The only thing that has changed is these goddamn springs. These ones have quite a bit of... They're quite tough. They're actual springs. Well, today, if you were to get something like that, they'd just be cheapo aluminum wire or cheapo iron wire. They wouldn't even be spring steel. These ones are actual spring steel, which is kind of interesting. Stereo. Portable stereo or radio. Double cassette recorder. That's a mouthful. Yeah, it's got a little indicator thing on top. Can't see it unless you hold it right. The antenna in this thing is a piece of shit. Quite frankly, I usually do away with these antennas because they are from hell. These things. Okay, now you got the full extension. Do you have any connection? Fuck no. These things are from hell. I usually make my own antennas for these things. Before you start barking at me that you can't make your own antenna, oh, trust me, you can. If you have the original antenna, good. This thing's pretty decent. If you don't have the original antenna, well, you're shit out of luck most of the time. But if you have a bunch of aluminum fencing wire, I do, you can just take 3 or 4 meters of this stuff, wind it up real tight around a small tube, and bend one side into a pigtail, and there you go. You got yourself a pigtail antenna. Whether you wind it up into a tight spring, you know, and then you end up with a pigtail antenna. You can make the best part about pigtail antennas is that you can break this surface area into a very small package, about yay big. They can make them that way you can make them much smaller. However, that means they also cover a smaller area of the sky. So what you might want to do then is make them a little bit longer. So you get maybe that. So instead of having this full length, you only have half length, but you have around 4 times as much wire in there. So you end up with really 3 times the surface area maybe, which is pretty good. However, you are covering a smaller area of the air, so there's a smaller chance you'll hit something. But because you get it, it's a bit complicated to wrap your head around. But once you realize it really doesn't matter what you do, you're only going to get as good a reception as you're in for a kind of area. It's not a science anymore. It used to be back in the day, back when radio coverage was really good and getting a good signal wasn't super difficult. Then it was actually a science getting a clear signal, not getting a decent signal. Today it's a wash, all of it. The fact that I even managed to get a signal with this thing is amazing. This antenna is pretty good. It's probably brass or something. But then putting a wad like this, like that, generally helps quite a bit for whatever reason. Nobody knows, but it just does. It increases surface area, I guess. I'm actually going to do that and make one of those pigtail antennas. I'm going to take one of these, spread it out in there, so I end up with a fuzzy thing. It's going to look very cute. I'm going to put that in here. Because I like this thing. It's nice. But they're real easy to make. I'll show you how to make that. They're a pain in the ass to make, that they are. But they work real well. I have 2 antennas. I have 2 radios to use them. My mother's radio used one because, well, quite frankly, when I was a kid, I was a dumbass and I managed to break off her antenna. So yeah. Well, it really didn't matter. The antenna with or without didn't really make a difference at the time because reception was crap as it was. You really couldn't get any reception no matter where you were. But we had one radio in the entire house that could get reception, and it's our oldest radio. We still have it, but it's in the basement. And it was like an old radio clock thing. It was something you could set to play a certain radio station at a certain time in the morning to act as an alarm. Really nice feature. I used that a lot when I was younger. I'm staring at this here, aren't I? So anyway, that was the only antenna we could use to get any sort of signal around here, because we're in sort of a radio divot. We're in a valley, I guess. We're in a radio shadow. We have a radio tower on top of the hill over there, but we're still in the shadow of it. We have to get out a couple of kilometers in order, or a kilometer or 2 maybe, in order to be properly within range of it. For example, if you're standing right next to it, you don't get any coverage at all. It's like cell phone coverage is nearly dead up there. It's kind of funky. Nobody really knows why that is. Generally, antenna coverage isn't that bad, but I guess it's something to do with the fact that it's not been maintained in years. Anyhow, it's not been maintained since I was a kid. Anyhow, so then, I don't know, I guess like a year or so ago, maybe 2, I got this fencing wire from my sister, who had gotten it from the school, because they were like, they had found it around or while they were cleaning one of the storage rooms down school, they had found a bunch of old fencing wire that wasn't up to code. It was, nowadays they all used stainless steel fencing wire, and it had to be that because of a certain blah 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 blah. Essentially, it had to fill a certain strength requirement in order to hold up for when whatever bullshit, when whatever animal decides to run through it, so that it will tangle them up real good, you know, to prevent them from running away. Real good. That was sarcasm if you didn't get that, by the way. That's terrible. It's a horrible idea. The weaker the wire, the better. If you're gonna have an electric fence, have a weak wire so that when the animals run through it, which they will the first few times, until they get it that there is electricity and it hurts like fuck walking into it, until they learn this, you may as well have a weak wire so they can't really just tangle themselves up on it. Some may argue that the aluminum is easier to tangle yourself up into. It really isn't, because the stuff snaps very easily. It's very brittle. It's soft and brittle. Kind of a weird combination, but it is. At least this wire is. So it would be kind of perfect, technically, but, you know, for cows, they're kind of stupid. We have really dumbed those things down over the years. It's kind of retarded the way we do that. It's just like, we literally just cage ourselves in that corner with killing animals through, you know, tangling them in by accident. But still, it's like, what? Anyhow, so they go on this, like, what, 50 meters or something? Or like, I don't know how long, 20 meters or whatever. I don't know how much, I haven't measured it. I just take some whenever I need it for whatever purpose. Anyhow, so they got a bunch of this, and it was like laying all over the floor, and they were like, yeah. The teacher was like, what is it? They're like, yeah, it's fairly lightweight. Teacher looks at it like, nah, that's old aluminum wire. That's old fencing wire. We're not allowed to use that stuff anymore. Either take it or throw it away. One of you either take it or throw it away, and my sister, being the little collector she is, no, she doesn't really collect this sort of stuff for herself, at least not at the time, because she didn't really have any use of this stuff, but she knew I always have a use of such things. Wire of pretty decent thickness, about 3 millimeters. 3 millimeters, roughly, is always good to have. Aluminum or not, it's good to have. I don't know, it's aluminum. One, it's really lightweight, and two, I've tried melting it, it didn't turn red. It just sort of melted. And if it does that, then it's aluminum. If it starts bulbing up before it turns red, then it's aluminum. Most likely some form of aluminum alloy. If it just barely turns cherry red and starts bulbing up, then it's most likely some form of aluminum too. If it's still neutral colored, you know, silverish, that's most likely aluminum too. Some form of alloy. The temperature differs a little bit. Anyhow, so anyway, she bunched all of this stuff up, tied it up, and like threw it at me. And since then, I've been using it to make antennas. I've been using it to make low power springs for flashlights and such, and it works fine for that. Now, granted, it's a temporary solution when you use the stuff for spring material, but it kind of works. I do wind it like you would wind a spring, and let's put it this way. Aluminum is one of those metals people think, oh, it's really, 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 really weak. And yeah, it kind of is, but at the same time, this stuff work hardens. The more you work it, the harder it gets. It's kind of like it has a very, it has something in common with copper, and that is that it work hardens. The more you beat on it with a hammer, the harder it gets, up to a point where it just starts cracking the moment you hit it. Been there, done that, gotten it to that point. At that point, it's also pretty warm. I'm just gonna say that if you just keep beating away at a piece of aluminum, it's gonna heat up rather quickly, because it moves so much with each hammer hit that it just sort of creates a lot of friction. This friction just heats it up real quick. It can get 50-60 degrees in just a couple minutes of hammering, no issue. If it goes from room temperature, say 17°C, it can just go up to 50-60, no issue, in a few minutes of hammering. If you got just a 1 by 1 centimeter piece, and you keep banging it together and just keep messing with it, eventually it'll be 50-60 C, if not 200. I've gotten a piece of steel up to that temperature. That's nasty right there. I was bored as a kid. I was easily bored. I just, you know, my mom worked as a welder, so, well, you know, yeah, she was a welder, so at her workplace they had an anvil and they had scrap metal and hammers, and they were like, and I was like, hey, do you mind if I beat on this piece of metal with a hammer on that anvil for a bit? They're like, no, go ahead. And I'm like, yay! Grabs a piece of scrap metal, like a small thin piece of rebar, like what, quarter, maybe, yeah, maybe a quarter of an inch. Just grabs that, begins beating on it like mad. There's a glove on my left hand because as it vibrates kind of nastily. It has to be kind of tough. Beats on that like a madman for nearly an hour straight. At the end of it, it's so goddamn hot that when you put it in water, it just starts. I did that a lot as a kid. I specifically remember this because it was kind of weird. I didn't understand it at the time, but it's plastic deformation, and when this occurs, it creates a lot of friction. This friction generates heat, and this heat, well, it heats up the piece of metal. Now you can actually use this to to go from cold to hot forging a small piece of metal, although it's not recommended. Some old smiths, like hundreds of years ago, used this to start their forges by banging on a piece of iron till it was red hot, and then they touched that to some dry grass or whatever that they had bundled up with some kindling, and then they get that going, and then they use some smaller stuff, and some larger stuff, and some larger stuff, and then they just throw on charcoal on top of that whole pile. And after letting the non-charcoal stuff burn down for a bit, they would be ready to start forging. Now they could get to the bellows. This was a very doable method, still is to this day. Man-at-Arms has tested this method at one point. They've used it. I think they used it during the Kill Bill sword build. Man-at-Arms Reforged, I might add. I think it was during the Kill Bill sword build. Not entirely sure though. I know it was one of the. It was when Ilya. It was one of. I think it was the first time Ilya truly took a hold of the build. They just left him to do his thing here. I think that was the first time that happened, that they did this. They did it his way, essentially. Wow, we went from radios talking about forging. Wow. Anyway, so yeah, restless as a kid, random shit happens. What do you also do when you're restless as a kid? Grab small diameter stainless steel tubing, basically 8mm outer diameter, 6mm inner diameter. You grab this stuff, cut a notch on one end, jam a piece of solid square stock in the other end, beat that to a point, sharpen it up with a file and an anvil, and a lot of force and tension, and a lot of force and time. Very little patience involved, of course. You by scratching up your hands, make yourself all blah, and then you make a bow out of a PVC pipe and some nylon rope that's completely rotted out. So you just grab a few fibers and you twine them up manually because you've seen this on the internet. This shit I did at my mom's workplace when I was a kid because I had nothing else to do while why was I there? There, you might ask? Well, you see, on occasion, since she was literally the only one with some sort of motivation, they occasionally asked her if she could do other things. You know, she would get paid extra for these things. These were like, say, painting the office or cleaning up a little bit, whatever. She'd get paid extra for this, of course, and she was like, yeah, why not? I mean, I get paid extra, why not? I need every penny I can get. So usually, because she didn't want to leave us alone, because this could go a few hours, she didn't want to leave us alone at home, me and my sister. So she brought us with her. We ate sandwiches and lollygagged about with the scrap bins, and my sister and mom were cleaning, and I was basically lollygagging around with the scrap bins and having a ball, simply entertaining myself. I helped like cleaning and a couple of times too, but I generally didn't do much of that. I remember I cleaned the offices. I did that every time we were there. I cleaned the offices, or helped out cleaning the offices. I didn't do the mopping, but I took care of all the sinks and toilets. That was upstairs, and they did all the downstairs stuff, which was a lot more, quite frankly. That was an interesting experience. Why did I do that? Mainly because I was bored, and I didn't know what to do. The times I didn't know what to do, I helped my cleaning, simply. So whatever. So yeah, that's a bit of insight into my life. What the fuck's the time? It's 2:57 in the morning. It's time to go to bed. I look high as fuck. Oh, I look high as all hell. That's amazing. I'm gonna post this just so you can see the deterioration. Oh, deteriorate. Wow, that's amazing. 41 minutes. Yeah, why not? Wow, I'm tired. I'm so freaking tired. I look stupid too. Oh, nice. Speaking of that, I better go to bed. Oh shit. Oh, yeah, I better go to bed. Quite tired. Yeah. So, I don't know. Maybe go to bed. Nah, I don't know. Sleep. Sounds good. If you can't tell, I am bored. Very much so. This looks fucking hilarious. I don't know about you. I think it looks pretty funny. How the fuck do I do this with my face? Now, to anyone watching this might be pretty obvious, but to me it looks like my jaw is completely dislocated. It's literally off by several centimeters. It looks like it's completely dislocated. My jaw isn't moved at all. It's like, how the when I look at it, I have my camera right here. I have my video feed right here. So I see what it is I'm doing. And I'm like, how the fuck am I doing that? That's why I was doing that for so long. I was like, why? How am I doing this? Oh my god, I really need to go to bed. This is not good. My brain. Goo. Man, I should get to editing that. I'll do that tomorrow. I need to edit. I have a space in this video to edit. But this is going up tonight. So have a good one.